And Libby, you're Patty.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Thank you
Better now
for
than
doing
once we
that.
started.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's Monday, March 26th. It's 2018. It's 5:30 PM, and we are in the City Hall Council Chambers. Roll call, Libby.
Cyphers.
Present.
Hawkins.
Yes.
Hassick.
Yes.
Peters.
Here.
Zarling.
Here.
It's been determined that we have a quorum, and we will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. First item is to approve tonight's agenda, and the only housekeeping it is the very last items. There was not a control sheet that that numbered 16.1 for the bills. And so with that, is there please a motion to approve the agenda as
So
presented?
moved.
Motion- Motion offered by Peters and second by Hassick. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Next item is the reading of the minutes from our last meeting, which was March 12th, and the minutes were included in your packet. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Motion offered by Cyphers and second by Hassick. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Next item is 7.1, open discussion from the Fairmont Soccer Association. Welcome.
Thank you. We would like to just appear tonight from the Soccer Association. I'm Kristen Thinkstead. I am on the soccer board, and this is Chris Johnston, and he's also on the soccer board. And this is Matt Tennyson. He is one of our high school coaches, and he also coaches within our association. So we're just going to kind of give you a little brief rundown of our program. So we just want to address the council to update you on who we are and what we do in the community. Fairmont Soccer Association is a volunteer community organization ran by a board of directors comprised of 14 dedicated members. We were established in 1985 as CER program for kids ages 5 through 10, structured on teaching kids the basics of soccer with skill, games followed by short scrimmages. This program still continues today. A few years later, we added a league for kids 11 through 17 years of age, now played in the spring, summer, hosted through the Minnesota Youth Soccer Association. In fall 2006, Fairmont Soccer Association started the high school program through Fairmont High School with 4 teams, varsity, JV, boys and girls for grades 9th through 12th. In 2007, we added the C-Squad teams, which are made up of your 7th and 8th grade boys and girls. Fairmont Soccer Association continued to run and pay for the high school programs 100% until fall of 2015, when we, along with the Fairmont Hockey Association, came to an agreement with Joe Brown and the school board to phase soccer into the school program over the next 3 years. This fall was the first that this fall will be the first year that it will be completely 100% funded by the high school and managed also by the Fairmont High School Association. So last fall, there was 126 kids playing fall soccer through the Soccer Association and through the Fairmont High School. So our other big important part of our program is we have a spring summer league. So this summer, we have about 149 kids registered that are ages 11 through 17. We have 3 boys teams and 5 girls teams. There's a committee that runs this program. I help run it, and another parent does, to put this program on for the spring season for 149 kids. The season runs May through July, but we actually start working on it in November and it ends in July. It's basically funded through our annual flower sales and sponsorships throughout this community. We have about 8 sponsors that sponsors our teams that we currently have this season. Our local businesses here in town have been very generous over the years, and they continue to be, which we are very thankful for. Our coaches are all volunteers, and our team jobs covered by parent volunteers as well. Our parent volunteers Our board member volunteers and sponsorships allow us to help keep our registration fees reasonably lower than anyone other communities that also have Fairmont, or that also have a soccer program. I know Mike compared figures to like what Albert Lee Soccer plays, and Fairmont, we don't even charge nearly enough what they also charge. But we also want kids playing in this community. That's also why we do it. So we also have a one-day tournament in May where typically 35 to 45 teams from out of town come here to Fairmont. So that's about 600 to 700 out-of-town players, which is about 2,000 people that come to Fairmont on one day, eating at restaurants, shopping between games, gassing up their cars, using the laundromat when it's pouring rain. Some even stay in the hotels the night before our tournament. And just to give you guys a brief rundown of the communities that come here to play May through June are Jackson, Spirit Lake, Iowa, Truman, Blue Earth, Grenada, East Chain, and of course our Fairmont kids. So we do have quite a few communities that actually come to Fairmont and that do participate in our program. We also offer waivers for kids to play who need a financial hardship. We want kids playing, so we do help cover that as well. Our other program that we have is rec soccer. So we have about 360 kids that will run through our program the middle of July through August, and it's a 5-week program, and that ranges for kids ages 5 through 10. This again is ran by 2 parents that were on the board, but they have stepped down from the board. Their kids have moved on, and so we are currently seeking replacement of this program for 360 kids here in Fairmont. It's Monday and Wednesday nights. Our coaches are volunteers, parents, high school players. Again, we teach the basics of soccer that lead into the spring and the fall seasons. Again, our community sponsors are very gracious. They sponsor year after year. Their logos get put on our shirts. I know I see high school kids still wearing their rec soccer shirts. We have 38 total teams last year that comprised of 360 kids, so that means 38 community or businesses in this community help sponsor these teams. And again, we offer waivers, so that way if kids need to play, again, we want kids playing. So why we're here tonight is because we are struggling because we cannot find anybody to run our rec soccer league, so we just would like to come to the city, ask for your suggestions, for your help. We have turned this into a paid position, and we are still struggling. We had CER come, we reached out to them. They currently are not staffed to help run our program. We've emailed families, we've posted on our Facebook page, our website. CER has also posted on their CER site. They've also emailed all the high school teachers as well. And so volunteers are hard to come by. And so within our own program, though, we've made voluntary mandatory for all parents. We've asked for a $100 volunteer deposit, and that has helped parents step up, but not to do these bigger jobs to keep this program running within the community. So we are currently looking for a rec soccer coordinator, a concession stand manager, and then a ref assigner for next year. But the big thing is as of this, now today for our July program, we have no one to help run the program. We are still going through with it as of now, but we just wanted to come and ask for your support. If there's something you can suggest to help us, we have gone to Minnesota Valley Action. We have an application to maybe we can partnership with their summer intern program that they have, but that is why we're here. We don't want to see this program die in the community. Like I said, we run 360 kids through it, and then we run another 150 kids through the spring program as well. So the other thing that we just have is you know, we did do the paid positions. We're trying to still keep our registration fees lower, but it is always great to see the organized chaos of 350 kids out there playing and learning the game. We also have our high school players that come out there coaching these young kids. It is great for the young players, giving them someone to look up to, but it also helps instill in the older kids a culture of giving back to your community. Most of them grew up playing rec soccer here when they were younger, having an older player to look up to. Now they get the opportunity to be that person for the new group of players. Hopefully the sense of giving back to your community carries them into adulthood. So we really do take pride that we do get our high school kids coming back to our rec program and coaching, even helping out in our spring program. We have high school kids coming back, and they also help out with practices and that type of thing for our younger kids. Soccer is relatively new to the community, but we're starting now to see the first generation of kids playing soccer from rec to high school, going off to college, then coming back into the community and giving back as adults. Brady Meyer played soccer for Fairmont. He's now our boys varsity coach, and now he's also on our soccer association board. Most recently, Matt Tennyson played rec, spring, high school, college, graduated. Now he's moved back to the area. He's teaching at Grenada. He's back on he's on Brady's coaching staff for the high school program, and he's also back in our association coaching our spring teams. So, I mean, as you can see, we do give back. These kids do make their return back. Matt will just talk a little bit about his experience playing rec soccer. But again, we're just we came tonight because we'd like to know if is there anything we're missing? Is there anything you guys have any ideas, partnerships, something just to try to continue to keep this program running? So.
Thank you.
She kind of summed up what I was going to say, but yeah, no, it all started in CER soccer. It's been 19 years that I've been involved in some way with Fairmont soccer. It's been obviously the majority of my life. I started at the age of 4, and now at 23 I'm coaching. So I mean, for those 19 years, it's been a true blessing that this organization has been here for me. I mean, I look at the crowd here and I see kids that I played with. My brothers played with kids on these teams. The relationships that I built started in CER soccer with those families and friends. And you know, 2 of my best friends from Fairmont started on the age of 5, and we went all the way through high school together. And so the reason I came back was the opportunity to teach in this, you know, this great county, but also to give back to the organization that made me not only the person I am, but you know, who I want to be and what I've become. So it started with the CER organization, and you know, these parents and people that have volunteered their time, they don't get paid, and they put a lot of time and effort to help me be the person that I am and help me be where I want to go. I use several people from the organization as references for jobs and for college, and after I graduated from Buena Vista University in Storm Lake, there's been 4 or 5 kids that have gone through the same process that I have and actually play in Buena Vista University as well. So, my school, along with people have gone to Bethany and played and up in the city. So it's, and St. Mary's as well. So you can see that they're starting at the same age, and their soccer has made a difference and really put them in a good position, both athletically and academically too. So just, it starts with CER, and that's where the love of soccer came for me. And without that, I have no idea where I'd be. So I give a lot to, I thank them a lot for where they've put me in and helped me to be in the position that I am today. So thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Hi, I'm Mike Dietz, president of Fairmont Soccer. Sorry, I was a couple minutes late, so Kristen kind of took the control. But does anybody have any questions about anything?
I've got one question, and that is, it sounds, it's not a monetary issue. Is that what I hear? It's a body. You need bodies.
Yep.
Okay.
And can you speak a little bit to your financial situation right now as a league? How do you raise I know you have the flower sale.
Yep. Yeah. Our funds are raised essentially through our flower sale is our main source of funding for the year, as well as individual sponsorships for each team. The sponsorships are not huge. They essentially just pay for the shirts for both spring and for fall. But we also have a lot of support from the community as a whole. People will, like Olson Rental donates, helps us with tents when we have our tournament. So we have lots of little sponsorships like that from Hy-Vee and from Fairway and from all the businesses in the community. Will just step up when we ask for something. We're having a tournament. What can you help us with? Oh, we can give you a case of hamburger buns, or we can give you a whole bunch of water. So a lot of help from the community like that really is not really quantified, but is a huge support for us. But yeah, it is the fundraiser is the biggest one. It's essentially fundraising, registration fees, and then sponsorships from the community. That's where we get our funding.
And then can you speak a little bit about your facilities?
Sure, yeah. The facilities that we have, the soccer field, the Fairmont Soccer Complex, it really is one of the greatest facilities in the state. I've had several people from the state, we had come down last year we hosted district tournaments for our spring league. So we had several people from the Minnesota State Soccer Association that runs our program come down as part of that, and they all told us that we have really a top 5 or 10 facility in the state of Minnesota as far as a soccer complex, having the quality of fields that we have, the location where they're all in one spot. If you go up to the cities to play soccer, their fields are scattered all throughout their community because they don't have room to put anything. So wherever they find a space, they'll put a soccer field. So they've got one here, one over there, 2 over there. So you never know where you're going to be. So to have, I mean, we've got over 40 acres of soccer fields out here, so we can put, I think essentially we always have 6 regulation fields and then 3 smaller fields, which at any time we can adjust a little bit one way or another. But we really do have a fantastic complex. It is a city park.
Yes, I was just going to say.
It is a city
because-
park, so the city
yes.
takes care of
Yep.
the main part of the facility, and they've been great to work with.
Good.
And then we have a field manager that does the fine detailed mowing and striping and taking care of the equipment and things like that.
Good.
But yeah, the city has been fantastic to work with on that, and it's been really helpful.
Thank you. Any other questions, Mike? You have
Well, I
a-
think you've done the first step. Hopefully, maybe, after hearing this, maybe somebody will step up.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope so too.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I thought something was really interesting too when I attended your meeting, and maybe you can speak about your new registration process.
Sure. Last year, I believe, was last year the first year? The first year we went with a completely online registration system, so no more paperwork, thank heavens, because that was just a nightmare to deal with for 350 kids, especially for rec. So it is a completely online registration process. All the data is entered automatically, so it takes a lot of that headache out of getting the season ready. All the data is there ready for you, ready to go.
I think most associations have found that to be very helpful. I
Oh,
mean,
it
to
saves
doing
just
it
a
all
tremendous
online, as
amount
well
of
as our
time.
swimming lessons. That used to be a nightmare too, and now it's all online, and it's very, very nice.
Yes, that was one of the best things we've done lately.
Yeah, congratulations.
What do you think your hurdle is for not being able to find somebody to run the program?
Getting somebody to commit some time, it's not it's not a huge paying job, but it does take a little bit of time. And there are some aspects to it too, where you need to be comfortable approaching members of the community, asking for sponsorships. You need to be comfortable handling an issue that might come up at the soccer field, so you have to have a little bit of, be comfortable with some conflict resolution. You can't be very timid about that. So it's not something anybody can probably just jump into and be comfortable with, but it is something that anybody could really take on and learn. But you also need to have a little bit of free time between, June and August.
So then, to Bruce's point, where he indicated it's really not a money problem, it's a people problem, but it sounds like, would it be fair to say that it could be a money problem if you can't pay enough to attract somebody who's willing to put in the time? I mean, or do you don't think that's an issue?
Potentially, I suppose. I mean, you throw enough money at anything and it can help. This is the first year we've done it as a paid position, so we have increased our registration fees to help get some money in for that position.
Right.
I think the other thing is like when I approach CER.
Would you,
I think the other thing is when I approach CER and ask them about potentially them helping us, I mean, their largest program is the T-ball of 105 kids. So Ronnie's like, whoa, 360 kids. I mean, I think that's also a little bit of a shocker to
Right.
people at first is the large number. Like I said, I do handle the spring part of it, and we do 150 kids, and I have another board member who's also a mom that helps run it. I mean, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot of work to even run it for 150 kids. So for 360, I think that is also the little bit intimidating part of it. But it can be done, and with the online registrations, it does make things a lot easier. But again, like Mike said, it's a little bit more than that. It's getting sponsorships, it's, parent confrontation, it's getting parents to work the concession stand, making schedules, ordering all of the T-shirts. I know we've already contacted a local business here in town to make the shirts. She's also kind of offered some ideas to help ease that process as well. So, I mean, we're trying all avenues. I think it's just the large number of, is this the initial 360 kids is a little bit of a shock. And like I said, 38 to 40 teams, that's a lot of kids to put through the community program, so.
Hopefully that right person will just be hearing your plea that you have, and for all those kids also, that they'll be hearing it and will come forward to help you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We hope so as well.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments?
I just want to say thank you for all that you do for the community of Fairmont. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. I mean, we do it because we love our kids and we love seeing them, all of them out there playing as well.
Okay. Counselor Zarling?
So if somebody heard this and is thinking, I'd really be good at that, how do they get a hold of somebody from the soccer association to?
You can get my contact information off of our website.
Okay.
Mike Dietz, President of Fairmont Soccer, and just, shoot me an email and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Do we link from the city's website? Could we? That might not be a bad thought.
Yeah, you
We
could.
have other organizations, yeah, that do that. We do with other organizations, don't we?
I think so.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be fine.
All right.
Maybe one other suggestion, you might approach the city sometime in the future about getting to extend Charles Street so you have a different outlet on a parking lot.
Yeah, if you've ever driven down Prairie on a Monday or Wednesday evening in early August, you'll know when soccer's going on.
Exactly, exactly. Which is a good problem to have, but it is a concern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a second outlet back there would be fantastic.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's just an idea if you want to approach the city sometime.
Sure.
Thank you
All right.
Yep, thank you.
very
Thank you
much.
very much for your time.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much. Okay, the next item is 9.1, public hearing for ordinance 2018-12, restrictive floodplain management ordinance. And at this time, this is a public hearing, so I'd like to open the public hearing, and we will start with Mike.
We've been encouraged by the DNR and the FEMA to have Fairmont get back in the National Flood Insurance Program. To do that, we have to adopt the ordinance in front of you. This is a model ordinance. We've had the Planning Commission look at it. We've talked to you about it. This is the public hearing where folks can come and weigh in on the floodplain ordinance. It's a model ordinance, as I said, that is used not only in this state but other states as well with FEMA. I don't see a downside to getting back in the program. What helped kind of initiate this was we had a number of folks wanting to purchase homes in our community this year that were near the lake or had actually been in a floodplain, and their federal mortgages or federally backed mortgages require that you buy flood insurance. Well, one of the only places you can buy affordable flood insurance is through the federal flood insurance program. So they came to us and to other real estate groups in our community and said, why aren't we in this? And so we looked at this. The ordinance really doesn't change a lot for us. It structures where people can build, and based on our comprehensive plan, I don't see a lot of building happening in those areas where we have floodplain. They're going to develop this program off our 1973 floodplain maps. And Troy, they're thinking about remapping in the next few years, they being FEMA. So we don't have a whole lot of floodplain in our community, so I don't think it's going to impact very many people. There have been some floodplain issues in our community where they wanted to build Pioneer Drive, that area. But we were able to contact FEMA and the DNR and have that removed from the flood area. So there are some things that we've been able to do, but I think having affordable flood insurance for any of those people that want to buy that would be helpful. So with that, I would take questions. Both Troy and I could answer any questions that come up.
First of all, let's open it up. Is there anyone here in attendance that would like to address the council on the floodplain management plan? Hearing none. Council members, do you have any questions for Mike before we move on?
If there were unintended consequences, we can always get out of it, right? I mean, this isn't a life sentence, or is it?
Well, I don't think it's a life sentence, and you can always, you as a body, you can pass another ordinance
Yep.
to get out of the program. I don't know that I would recommend that necessarily. I don't know what unintended consequences we
I'm-
might run into.
I'm not
with this,
arguing,
but-
I'm just, there's a back,
That-
we can
there's-
back out if some for, who knows?
It's voluntary.
Yeah.
And it might, the unintended consequence of getting out might have a financial impact on some of those that bought federally
Right.
sponsored flood insurance.
Any other questions for Mike? If not, if there's a motion, please to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion offered by Zarling and second by Hawkins. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Next item is to approve ordinance number 2018-12 as presented.
So moved.
Motion offered by Peters and second by Hawkins. Is there any further discussion on this ordinance? If not, roll call vote, please, Libby.
Hawkins,
Yes.
Hasek,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Zarling,
Yes.
Cyphers.
Yes.
Motion passed. Next item, 13.1, Interlochen Heritage Days event permit, and we'll start with Mike.
This is the Interlochen Heritage Days event permit for June 8th through the 10th. They have various events going on in our parks as they have in the past. What's going to take place is in front of you on page 19. Staff's recommending approval of the special event permit for Interlochen Heritage Days.
Is there a motion, please, to approve the event permit for Interlochen Heritage Days to be held June 8th through the 10th, 2018?
So moved.
Motion offered by Cyphers and second by Hasek. Marlis or Rachel, do you have anything you'd like to add at this time before we do a vote? Okay. Okay, all right, that sounds good. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. 15.1, Interlochen Heritage Days Festival funding, and we'll start with Mike. Okay. Okay, Marlis and Rachel.
I'm here on behalf of the Interlochen Heritage Days Committee and ongoing efforts to plan, organize, and provide the 30th Annual Interlochen Heritage Days Summer Event this June. We are currently a committee of just 6 individuals: Velma Shaw, Rachel Greeley, Laura Dunker, Corey Walters, Jody Martin, and myself, Marlis Brumman, who have put in numerous hours to plan the upcoming event. Our committee has kept a similar schedule as last year. We are currently scheduled to kick off with a free community meal Friday, June 8th at Heritage Acres. During the meal, the music group Heart Song will be performing to provide us entertainment. Saturday, June 9th, we will be at Heritage Acres with a flea market craft event. There will be music and art events for all ages throughout the day. That evening, we'll be having a kiddie parade and the main parade, following the same route we have followed last year. To end the day, we will have a street dance with the band Foreplay on First Street. Sunday, June 10th, activities will be at Gumshoe Park. Art events, inflatables, canoe rides sponsored by Smiles Organization, and the Mason Lodge has agreed to put on the duck races this year. It is the goal of our committee to continue building on the events and activities that have been brought back in the recent years, and we can bring an even larger event to the community of Fairmont to celebrate our wonderful City of Lakes. We have been doing fundraisers throughout the year, including the Holy Hot Dish Series with local churches, our vendor shows at Five Lakes Center, our Little Miss and Mr. and Junior Miss and Mr. of Fairmont contests, and we received a $10,000 grant from Martin County Area Foundation for art and musical events for that weekend. We have already received donation and sponsorships from area businesses and local citizens through our letter campaign last fall, and continues with this effort. In support to provide a series of free to low-cost activities to citizens of all age, abilities, and circumstances, and to celebrate the uniqueness of Fairmont area and our lakes, we are requesting a contribution of $10,000 from the city of Fairmont. The funds would help offset the cost for the 3-day celebration, the parade, and advertising. Thank you for your consideration on this request. I'm here to answer questions along with Rachel.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for them at this time? Another one?
Your control sheet has an error. We are very supportive of the Interlaken Heritage Days, and we budgeted $6,000
Okay.
for this year, as we have in the past. It says 10,000, and we're asking for your approval, but that should say 6. As I said, we budgeted $6,000, and I guess what I would suggest, if we think about increasing that, maybe we talk about that during budget time for next year, but right now we have in the 2018 budget $6,000.
What is the total cost?
The part that the city, that we're working for, the city part, is for the parade and for advertising. Is basically what the money that we raised from you. Last year, it cost us close to $11,000 for the parade and advertising. The events that are at the, like Saturday events and Sunday events with the crafts and the inflatables and the musical, that is all being paid for by our sponsors and by the grant that we are going to receive. That is kind of what, how it's divided out,
Okay,
so.
okay. Thank you. Any other
I
questions?
do. Do we get a copy of the book, so to speak? So Paul looks it over and just,
What book?
well, just your financial, just your,
I'm not sure that we ever have, but you sure can have a copy, because it's,
I was going to suggest that, and we did back a couple of years ago when the group kind of disband, the old group disband, we did get a look at their books, but I would recommend that if you all continue to approve funding for them, we should at least get an accounting of where our money was spent and to ensure that it's done for a public purpose.
I concur.
Yes.
okay?
And just to be clear, we've done $6,000 last year, and how many years?
I think the last several years.
we-
Oh, she's saying 3.
Yeah.
Thanks,
And I think
Rachel.
before that, it might have been 5.
Yeah, it was 5, I think.
Yeah. This is our 4th year.
Okay.
That I've been with it
Okay,
along the way.
And so we are going into our 2019 budgeting process, so this might be something to think about
Right.
for next year. You guys, so.
I'll make a motion to approve $6,000 in funding.
Second.
motion offered by Peters and second by Zarling. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you to your committee for making that weekend happen for all of us, and we look forward to being part of it. Thank you. 15.2, presentation of East Side Burton Lane Stormwater Study, and we'll start with you, Troy.
Evening, Mayor and Council. In 2017, we budgeted funds to look at some of the drainage concerns around the Friendship Village and Burton Lane area. That area floods quite frequently under moderate storm events. So there's been past studies done in that area. Just to kind of update things with some new modeling software. We did hire Bolton and Mink to do another evaluation or a further evaluation of some alternatives for the flooding in that area. And we have Bill Douglas here with Bolton and Mink to do a little presentation to talk about the report. I think everyone got a copy of the report prior to the meeting, and I'm sure you've all read it already. But we'll talk through that a little bit and kind of discuss some of the alternatives with this presentation.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Is it- oh, it's-
You, yeah. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, as he's putting it up, I do have a little PowerPoint presentation for you. Again, I am Bill Douglas. I lead the Water Resources Group at Bolton and Mink, where we do stormwater studies all over the place. Let's see if this thing works for me. Maybe my power button didn't go on. Okay, the first, one of the things that the study, the report you have says the East Side Storm Water Study. It didn't really specifically name Friendship Village, but the report, the PowerPoint kind of describes Friendship Village because that's the area where 90% of the flooding occurs, and that's where the phone calls come from at first. Thank you. And this is just a picture of from the southeast corner of Friendship Village, and you can get a sense of elevation from this picture as you go toward this building right here. It's the lowest building in the site, and you can kind of see that there's a lower area here. And what I really like to point out is this intersection right here at the south side of South Perimeter Drive and Burton Lane is the overflow to go to the east. So this is how high the water has to get before it can leave the site. This is just a picture of the lowest building, the one I pointed out in the earlier. There's a retaining wall right here. So the first floor elevation is maybe 3 foot below the road of Perimeter Drive in this location. And most of the time, last summer when I drove past it, there were sandbags in front of the doors, here and here. And there's a good reason why. And I'll get into that later. There were previous investigations. In 1990, the company of TKDA analyzed the east side, did an east side storm drainage study. At that time, the computer programs weren't very sophisticated. There were big reams of paper that printed out, and you had to page through them. I know I paged through most of them at the time. And then in 1996, there was a storm drainage master plan, and I got to be part of that as well. Kind of gives you my age a little bit. But both of those studies recommended trying to get things to go to the southeast across that low point in Burton Lane to a low area in what is the Kramer property out there. And then try and go toward the basin right behind Shopko by Spruce Street. We investigated that alternative. The problem with that is by the time we got a pipe deep enough in the ground, we didn't have a good enough fall to go to Spruce Street, so we wanted to look at other alternatives. This just shows the watersheds, and therein lies some of the biggest problem. This area here, Friendship Village, is shown in orange there. The area that drains directly to the low point in Friendship Village is 50 acres. That, once it overflows, and it's supposed to go through a stormwater pipe that comes down to Adams Avenue, connects into the State Street system down by Hy-Vee, and that adds another 40 acres on top of that. It's simply way too much water for that system. It was not designed for it. One of the things that's common is that before the 1980s, stormwater was designed for the 5-year storm and even less sometimes. And you think even earlier than that, a lot of people had cisterns in their houses and dirt basements. And water in their basements wasn't an issue until we started developing and wanting to have carpet and everything down in basements, and now we expect that. Hence, since then, storm sewer designs have gotten bigger and bigger, but some of these older parts of town that are on the upper reaches of the storm sewer system are not ready for that. One of the problems is the pipes that both of these systems outlet into Bud Lake. They go all the way to Bud Lake, right past Prairie, right past where they get into the soccer fields. And it's a long ways, and by the time you get to this area, the pipes are very shallow. One of the things that's been going on in Burton Lane for years is that the pipe is so shallow it starts to heave from freezing every year, and I think all of us have driven down Burton Lane and seen how fun that is. We need to have a deeper outlet system for that. with the more sophisticated modeling that we have now, we can take the contour maps, we can run it and use the contour maps as let the stormwater system overflow to that, and then use the contour maps and the digital elevation model to help us do inundation mapping with the flooding. And one of the things we can create is this system that shows the darker color would be the 10-year storm flood inundation, and the lighter color is what happens during the 100-year storm. This is part of a larger, in your reports, there's a larger map that goes for quite a ways out into the Kramer property out to the east. But you can see what the problem is. Water just can't get out, and even when it does, it flows almost like a river to the southeast when you have that huge rainfall event. The problem is that the same units that I showed you in the earlier are right there, and the blue, dark blue, comes right up into it. So even for just slightly over a 2-year rainfall event, which is slightly over 3 inches, those units get flooded every time you get more than 3 inches of rain. That's a 2-year event that has a 50% chance of happening in any given year. We looked at all kinds of alternatives. Like we said, one of them was to go down to the outlet to the southeast, and then go to the Spruce Street Basin, which is right by Shopko there. And we found that we just didn't have enough cover for a pipe to get there. We'd almost have to bring the basin all the way back to this area with open water, which is not recommended. The ones we did look at, we looked at on-site detention at Friendship Village. Can we just put a pond in that area? We looked at that same on-site detention plus a outfall to the southeast over to just an extension of Victoria Street. We call it the Victoria Basin. And then coming back to the downstream system and connecting in at State Street right next to State and Adams, right next to Hy-Vee. We also looked at on-site detention plus a new outfall to the west, which halfway to the airport is Judicial Ditch number 48. And there's a possibility of connecting that way. And finally, we looked at, well, is it more cost effective to remove and rebuild those buildings somewhere else, the ones that are flood prone. So when we go into it, here's alternative one. There is kind of an existing retention basin there right now in this southeast corner. It goes to, the problem is it's deeper than the existing storm sewer in the area. So there's a little sump pump style pumping station that removes the water. It gets overwhelmed with the 2-year storm. It really is ineffective other than storing that small amount of water that's in the bathtub that exists there and then removes it between storms. We looked at possibly enlarging that basin and increasing the pumps. The problem is, where do we pump it to? Where can we legally pump it to? The downstream system isn't big enough. We need to do something more with that to be able to store it and pump it at the rates that need to go away, unless you get a huge enough basin to store it all and pump it off slowly. It's the bigger bathtub theory. If you have a small bathtub and it gets filled up too fast, you have to have a bigger drain to take it out. So if you have a bigger pump, you have to have some way to take what you're pumping away. We looked at, the biggest problem is that 50 acres coming to that small area is just overwhelming. And so because we did analyze it, and because we kept trying to remove buildings and keep growing the pond, and it still couldn't keep up with it, we abandoned that and didn't give you a cost estimate for that. The second alternative, this over here, is the Victoria Basin. We've been referring to as the Victoria Basin for no other reason than it's somewhere near the extension of Victoria Street. What we'd look at doing is developing a pipe that could come down to this, excavating this basin, coming back down Adams and connecting in by Hy-Vee. With the large enough bathtub on Victoria, which you can see the size that we need compared to what we had available, with that large enough basin, we can throttle it back so we don't cause more flooding than has occurred in the past at Hy-Vee. I witnessed that, and I know it's very bad. The other concern about this particular alternative is this low point, although it's farmed, when you start to develop it for other reasons other than farming, you may have wetland issues there. You have to go through what they call an aerial photo review process to find out whether there's wetlands there, but there may be wetlands there. I have a strong indication that there are. Alternative 3 was, well, let's see what we can do and just put an open ditch across the Kramer property out to a pond before going into judicial ditch number 48. We looked at that one. We can do this with just the construction cost of that outfall and this pond is about $782,000. It's highly recommended that we intercept as much of the water as we can on Tilden and Burton Lane. And that's probably eventually another $697,000, roughly $700,000 on top of that, to improve those streets and put in new storm, and since we're there, probably water main and sanitary, to improve those streets and intercept the stormwater before it gets to the Friendship Village Basin. So there's a price tag there of around $1,400,000 there. So it's adding up $400,000.
That doesn't include easements and land acquisition though, correct?
That's correct. That's the last note on there, is it excludes, it's below the chair probably for you. It excludes easements, acquisition costs. I really don't like giving out at that number because that's the number that people request when they see it. So that's a negotiation I'd like to see after the fact.
Can I butt in?
Please.
What would it take to not have an open ditch? Would you need a 24-inch tile, or, because I think you'll have a lot better luck with acquisition if you go underground.
I agree. We looked at it as probably more on the lines of a 60-inch.
Okay.
It's a
So
big
you
one.
have looked at that?
Yes, we have. And that would easily double your cost, just to put a pipe in the ground.
Of the 800,000?
Yes,
But land acquisition may offset that.
you are correct. And that might be part of the negotiation with the landowner, who's saying, geez, if I can develop that, you put in a stormwater pipe for me, that might help with the easement acquisition
thank you.
costs. Very good question, thank you.
Bill, how deep would that 60-inch pipe have to be? I mean, how far would you put that?
Well, it's gonna have to be, well, I'd have to take a look at it. It's not that bad. We'd probably have to daylight it early and bring some of the pond that's on the bottom back a little bit, because you gotta have cover over a 60-inch pipe, and then you gotta have probably 3 feet of cover on top of that. So you're talking 8 feet of depth at a minimum, probably on the order of 8 to 15 feet is what I'd be seeing there. We did choose a route there that's on the shallowest part, but we're gonna have to start out at least 8 feet deep, and we're gonna have to probably go through a little bit of a hill and keep grade, and then we'll start to daylight as we get to the other end of it.
Can you go back there? Yeah. Is that pond you have out there, is that still on Kramer property, or is that?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And we'd probably have to do that just to mitigate the flows. That's the size, again, that it'd probably need to be. And we'd have to do that to mitigate the flows going into Judicial Ditch 48, so that the downstream property owners are satisfied that we're not flooding them. We can't just, unfortunately, we can't just pull the plug and say, it's your problem now, like used to be done in the past, so.
48 goes into Center Creek, I assume?
I believe so, yeah, it flows north.
Yep.
So,
Can't see, what is the size of that basin, acre-wise?
yeah, it isn't, you can't see it because it's not there, and I don't recall off the top of my head. For comparison purposes, the little area there is about less than a half acre. So that's gonna be at least 4 or 5 acres. Sorry, I don't have that off the top of my
And
head.
is that farmed now, that purple area over there to the right?
Yes, it is. In fact, there's even some more area that we avoided because it looks like it's wetlands to the east of it. So we picked an area that was a little bit higher up that is not wetlands, so that we wouldn't have to mitigate on top of building a pond, which sounds counterproductive and counterintuitive, but we don't want to build a pond where there's a wetland. Bowser wants us to treat it before it goes into their wetland, is what it comes down to. And that pond would have to be, because of the close proximity to the airport, that pond would have to be a dry pond.
What does that mean, a dry pond?
It means it would not have permanent water in it.
Oh,
It would fill up as a bathtub
okay,
and then dry out between rainfall
okay,
events.
thank you.
We did look at the records. We wanted to make sure we could drain to that area, so we went to the county courthouse to find out that purple line is the edge of the 48-inch, or JD 48 watershed. So Friendship Village and most of Tilden and all of that area, even parts of the north part of the Fairmont parking lot goes to JD 48. And so it's included. I do apologize. Somehow when we went to PDF, Friendship Village, which is down there, that says Friendship Village up here, it's incorrect. Alternative 4 was starting to remove buildings, and what we have, I tried to put all the information that I can on this slide. It's a lot of information to digest. What I put on there was that the overtopping of Burton Lane is 1169.3. All of the units, the existing 100-year flood, in order to overtop and go out, has to get above that 169.3, so it gets to 69.7 or almost 70. The parcels in Unit 1 are below elevation 69, so they get flooded all the time. And for the 100-year storm, the units in, the apartments in Unit 2 are also, would get flooded for that 100-year event. Unit 3 is probably above the 100-year event, but the concern is that somebody drives through one of these and causes a wave, you got a problem in some of those buildings as well, or wind comes up while it's full of water. Those are issues. Hopefully that isn't a problem, and hopefully you get out there and put barricades and we don't have wind from the southeast at the same time all this is happening, but there's a potential for greater flooding when it happens. So if you were to try and do things, I believe the red line is elevation 71 here. All of the units to the east of that red contour line could be affected by, if we started removing buildings and then it flooded and we got water up to that other elevation with wave action, it could affect all of them to the inside that red line. So that's of concern, and it suddenly starts to add up a lot of apartment units. This is just a layout we've got from Ms. Dede that says, it tells how many units there are. Apartments are in each unit as we have it, and that's in your report as well. If we used just, I think it was 2017, I should have checked that. A duplex was just built in town, and they were added up to about 160,000 per unit. So given that same number and just extending it for 14 apartments, that's about $2.2 million just to do 14 apartments in the units 1, 2, and 3 that I showed on the previous slide. You know, unit 1, unit 2, and unit 3. I don't know why we call them units for that many apartments, but they are kind of separate apartment setups at access points. If we went all the way to that red contour line that I showed you earlier, that could be 34 apartments, and that gets to be $5.4 million. Hence, it's a large number. Recommendation, and that's focusing right on Mike's point there, is that depending on easement acquisition and negotiation costs, alternative 3 right now appears to be the best alternative to go to the east toward Judicial Ditch 48. No easement discussions have been held at all at this time. That's remains to be seen, and have to deal with the landowner out there. With that, that's all I have. We have studied this and looked at a lot of alternatives that aren't discussed here, trying to find the magic potion that'll take care of the problem, but the best solution is to pull the plug and then hold it somewhere further away.
So you explain in Appendix B that you've got 3 cost estimates. I don't know what is what.
I think they talk about the different alternatives.
Oh, it says alternative 3, I see.
Yes, and I should have had them.
You only included 2 and 3.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Got it. Thank you, sorry.
No problem, because it should have gone further than 2 and 3 and told you what they were, but,
So it would be fair to say, Bill, the site location back in the early 70s for these units was not the optimal site.
that would be, now, yes, it's easy, hindsight is 20/20, but it was, I presume that even before they put those in there, somebody put a pipe in there and wanted to develop it, so, which is not uncommon. I'm dealing with similar situations in many cities at bigger prices.
So in alternative 2, did you say that on Victoria Street, that basin, did you say there is wetlands there? Or there?
I believe there are. I have not gone any more than talk to my wetland specialist, who's just outside my office, and he looked at it on the aerial photos and said, yeah, I think that's a wetland. That's as far as we went. And what you do in that process is to determine whether it's a wetland on farmland, is you do an aerial photo review over the last 20 years, and any you go through the county NRCS office to find out. They have a rainfall information, and they find out whether it's a normal rainfall year, a wet year, or a dry year. You throw out all the dry and wet years, you take all the normal rainfall years, you find out which years those show up on a photograph, and if there's crop stress in 50% of the years that are normal rainfall years, it's a wetland.
So,
So that could possibly not be an alternative.
That could very much not, well, it could be an alternative, but we might have to build it like we did on the alternative 3. We backed it off from what we were very positive was a wetland and put that pond upstream from it. And we could do something similar from that.
Okay.
so this whole county was mapped in 1980 something so they can still, they can still call something a wetland that wasn't determined a wetland at that time?
Yes.
Well, the jerks.
Those national wetland inventory maps were done from USGS quad maps and the best aerial photo information they had, but they didn't do the same process. So yes, they can do that.
Okay. Yeah, they had people on the ground here. We had a whole team of people in to this county. Had spent a summer or 2 summers physically marching around and. Okay.
My wetlands experts usually say that those maps are a great indicator, but that's where you gotta stop.
No, that was a question.
It's a good question.
Okay. Any other questions for Bill? I think we'll hear more
Did
about
you
this.
say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, so you're saying that part of the thing when you're negotiating with landowners for stuff, you know, some things that, I thought I heard you indicate that sometimes landowners are more open to negotiating when you give them some perks that allow them to develop the land that they normally wouldn't be able to develop, right? That this project might help them to develop some of that area. Is
I
that
would-
possible, or?
I would hope that Mr. Kramer sees it that way, but I can't speak for him on any, there is a possibility that,
But some of the work that we're doing will make it more advantageous to consider development? Is that what I heard or not?
it will provide an outlet for his storm salt water on his upper part of his properties.
Right, so so there'll be an advantage that could possibly lead him to develop it if he wanted to.
Yes.
Okay.
And I assume we are under, as a city, we're under obligation to not just bulldoze them. It sounds like we need to replace if we're going to,
Bulldoze what?
well, to knock whichever alternative it was.
Friendship Village.
Oh, I think, yeah, we couldn't just bulldoze Friendship Village. It's owned under a declaration of trust by
Okay.
Housing and Urban
So we're
Development.
obligated to replace. That was,
Well, we would have to get approval from them. They essentially own the properties.
okay, okay.
Because of the money, the subsidies we receive and that sort of thing in the,
There's also probably environmental justice issues there too, so.
Exactly.
and then we would have to consider in both these options, if there's wetlands, the 2-to-1 mitigation in terms of credits, trying to buy them somewhere, or?
Yes, unless we can avoid the wetlands. That's, avoidance is the first rule in wetland encroachment, or they want you to avoid, then minimize, and then finally mitigate. And if you can't do the first two, then you're allowed to do the third one. It's not a given.
Any other questions at this time for Bill?
I guess I do have one more,
Thank
not
you.
for Bill necessarily, but what's our next step? I mean, this is all well and good, but now what?
Well, I think we need to digest this a little bit, and then this is kind of the first
Yep.
I'm hearing of it, and sit down with Troy and Bill and Greg and find out what's practical. Maybe have some discussions with the landowner sooner
Okay.
than later to get their feelings. We can say Mr. Kramer, but I'm not actually sure that's the case. There might be some other ownership in that, so we need to figure that out. But this was, to tell us, here's our alternatives, here's some general cost, and we'll have to look into that, and then come back to the council in a work session or something and say, if you choose to do this, this is the money we don't have, and this is the money we'll
Refresh my
have to.
memory, do we have any funds for this at all?
We
anywhere?
have limited funds because we're using a lot of that to solve part of the Canyon Drive problem. Right now, we have a stormwater fund that's, each building in our community, houses and others pay into a fee, but it doesn't quite build as quickly as others. And then as we're doing our regular construction throughout the year, we use some of that money to upsize some of the stormwater piping we are disturbing when we tear up a street. So, yeah, it doesn't last very long. I think we have less than $1 million in there now, and we're using 690,000 of it or about for Canyon Drive.
Have we ever done an evaluation on, are we collecting enough? I mean, have we been underfunding those accounts? Just by the fact that, both Canyon Drive and this have been going on for 3 decades.
Yep.
So have we been remiss in not over the years, funding that through the stormwater rates to?
That could be a question of, have we been remiss in not raising all of our taxes? And I don't know it's remiss, I think it's.
Well, other than the fact that
what-
this has
what
been,
people
this has
are-
been an issue, a thorn in people's sides for 20, 30 years, that's all.
Right, so.
And we haven't dealt with it, so. I mean, that's really that's gonna be my top budget priority is, for 19, is figure out a way to do this and the Canyon Drive and get it done, and figure out, and have you guys come up with a way to, how do we pay for it if we're gonna do it all? rather than wait around for another 20
Well,
years to get
hopefully
all that.
Canyon Drive will be done, correct?
Well, it's
That won't be
not
done.
gonna
It'll
be
just
totally
one-
done. We're increasing the outlet size right now. That doesn't have, its basin's $1 million? Or,
Isn't Canyon Drive, though, what you're doing there, this increasing the outlet, in order to research how much more has to be done? Is the result of doing that going to help you determine how much more? Do you already know that there's going to need to be more done than that? This is just step 2 in a 6-step process, or is that what that is?
Yeah, this is a phase of that overall evaluation of that watershed. The next step is looking at a larger upstream pond, very similar to this situation, except we don't need a pipe to get there. But acquiring land that we currently do not own and putting in a large detention basin to treat all that water before it gets just on the other side of town.
Right, and I think in that end too, I think since that water is coming, a couple miles out, that we should.
It's a bigger watershed. Yeah.
Right, we should look at getting involvement from the county, since, that's a lot of water that's not from the city limits. That's, in this case over here, we got water in the city limits that's trying to leave the city. In this case, we got county water that's trying to come into the city to get into Lake Siston, right? So we should at least open up discussions with the county. I know my wife even brought up something to Kathy Smith, in this process, since that big pipe you're talking is right next to my house. And it's been a kind of a pain for us over the years. But, that's, I think if you know that the final result of Canyon Drive, and this is just step, we should, include all of that. And, okay, in the next 2-3 years, how do we get both of these areas done and behind us, and what's it gonna cost, and what would we have to, how much money do we have to raise? And that'll be my 19 budget priority, to figure all that out. We may not be able to afford to do it all in 1 year or 2 years, we might have to do it over 5 years, who knows? But we need to present the public an option, to do it to completion, rather than, the 20, 30-year plan we've been on now with no understanding when it's gonna end, so.
Of course, my engineering background. I think the outlet's gonna fix it.
Well, I hope it would, but like I say, that's why I didn't know if that was the case or not. But you already know it's probably not gonna fix it, it's just another step. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you for your time.
thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
15.3, City Attorney's Database, E-Charging, MCAPS Program, and Elizabeth.
The whole world has gone digital. And so for the last, I think it's 6 or 7 years, we've been doing electronic e-charging of filing of criminal complaints and creating these complaints. The program, the computer program that we've been using was wonderful, mind-boggling at the beginning, and has been deteriorating over the years. The consortium of the Minnesota County's Computer Cooperative became dissatisfied with the vendor who was providing the services. And so they've switched out the vendor, and now everybody who belongs to the cooperative has to reaffirm, yes, we want to continue on in the cooperative, and we're willing to go along with this new vendor, and we will make our payments. And so that's what we're asking you to do here today.
Okay. Any questions for Elizabeth?
This company has nothing to do with the people that are trying to fix the
Then
license
ours,
at the
no.
state.
No,
I figured that.
Any
Cost similar?
yes.
I'll
Sir.
make the motion.
A motion, please, to approve the signing of the ratification statement by the mayor and the city clerk, and has been offered by Peters,
Second.
second by Hasek. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. 16.1, accounts payable, and Paul.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just asking for approval to pay the bills for March. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for Paul at this time? If not, is there please a motion to approve payment of the March 2018 bills?
So moved.
Motion offered by Zarling,
Second.
second by Peters. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Next item is 17. Mike, do you have anything under 17? Anybody else have anything under 17? My only one is when we had our Saturday with the city, and that went very well. And thank you to the people that took the time to attend that meeting. Thank you to the management staff that took the time to attend that meeting, to council members that were there. Thank you for taking the time. The next one will be May 5th, and there'll be more information coming out on that one. And Troy Nemers will be the presenter at that one, our city engineer. And so, if nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion offered by Zarling,
Second?
second by Cyphers. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried, and the meeting is adjourned.